Let me know
Sure.
when you
We're in a good spot right there.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, this is the first time we've gone through it, so we'll spend a little bit of time on what we're doing with the walk and talk. And we're going to walk and talk through the first module called orientation. And we call it a 40,000 foot view. One thing that Marcia or I could do is just teach the orientation slide, but that's not what we want to do here. We want you as a facilitator to get the big picture and write some notes down, write some questions. I'm going to walk through this and have a little bit of time. If Gina can kind of watch the time for me as well, to leave some time for questions. So make some notes. And what we're looking for is not detail of how to say it or covering all the points, but understanding the nuance of what it is we're trying to accomplish at a higher level. And if you got any questions, I don't mind being interrupted. And so we'll just kind of walk through this and take a look at the orientation module from a big picture standpoint. I believe the next slide tells us to go ahead, if we can, on our own computers. Whoop, I guess not. On our own computers, if we could just open up the orientation module, and maybe you can do that, Marcia. Is that what you're doing? To look at the orientation module from a yeah, just like she's done there with the slide sorter. And so we're looking at all the slides now of the whole section of orientation. Let's walk through what's going on. The first two, the first slide there, the orientation title and the alignment with our vision, is your opportunity to really set the stage for what this is about. And you can walk around the ideas here clockwise, if you like, starting with the top one. But this is an opportunity for, this is so pivotal because this is the first time they are seeing you as a person, and they are formulating all sorts of ideas about what this course is about and who you are. And honestly, I really like the idea that Mary Margaret said, connection grows at the speed of trust. Your trust has started when people entered the classroom and you've engaged with them. This is your first opportunity formally to speak to the group and further that trust. So that's really what you're doing, is coming as a person and engaging with them as to what this course is about. You get an opportunity in the next slide there to talk about its differences from other kinds of learning. And then in the next slide, slide number 4, you get again a chance to talk about the continuous learning journey of this. As adult learners, we attempt, we try, we fail, we pick up, we try again, and it gives you the idea, the opportunity to just explain what the course is about. The elements on 5 there help people connect with pictures and give them some icons to connect with what it is we're doing in the learning process. And again, this is a stage setting. These aren't details. This is giving people the larger view of how this course is put together and the different ways that we help them learn. The learning ingredients we heard about, that puts people at ease, and that was a great. Heather, you did a great job. Or Lola, I'm sorry, did a great job of putting us all at ease with those ingredients. Through all of this, you're still sharing yourself. But these first slides here, 1 through 6, really set an atmosphere. They create an environment. Then you're going to ask them to do something, and that is going to put them in a box a little bit. It's going to put them in one of those zones. And for many of us, we're very comfortable with introducing ourselves to a stranger. For some people, this is their first in the box. So as a facilitator, be aware of that and help them understand, or help them just know that you're raising the level of discomfort for some people, but for a purpose. And so that we go through that, we do the introductions, and I believe at that point we take a break, and that's a great place to kind of help people reorient. And then we go through the modules, the 5 interlaced modules. These are the movie trailers that you are speaking. And what you are doing in this section of these, all the way through transition, slide 14, you are creating in their mind, boy, I'm glad I'm here. This is going to be interesting. I can't wait. That's what you want to create within them. It will help them gain interest and hunger if you can present this in a way that invites them and challenges them, and as opposed to it being a clinical explanation. Then slide 15, pivotal of our entire course. And again, we don't, as it was said this morning, we're not dictating how much time you put on this particular slide, but we do want the participants to feel the gravity and that this is the purpose of the course. Everything rests on this significant behavioral change. We can have fun, we can enjoy fellowship with people, we can enjoy the food, and we can thank Bob and Cynthia for putting it all together. But the real idea is, will we change our day-to-day micro little activity, little decisions that we make day to day? Then that is preparing us for the idea of checking now, what is it that we are concerned about and what is it that we hope to gain? This is a very important element of adult learning. They are here, they're going to have concerns, and they need to voice those concerns in order to be able to learn. They need to get those concerns documented and off the table, so to say, so that they can then use their mind to do the learning. And that's what we're doing. That's why we have this particular section, is to capture now, with all the discomfort that we've put through them, what is it that they're concerned about. Let's get them on paper, let's talk about them, let's be real about them, and that will prepare us then to kind of clear our mind and begin the next section, the next module. So that's, in my mind, the 40,000-foot view. I'm going to stop now and open the floor to questions or comments. Marcia, if you've got something to add, I'm sure I missed something that you may feel strongly about. I'll open it up and be quiet.
This is Gary. Can you hear me?
Okay, Gary.
Hi, Gary.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about as you were going through these introductory slides is the different profiles, and I know the disc is not revealed yet, but just being aware that we have these different profiles in the room, and they're looking for different things in this introduction. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit to how the sequencing and content of these slides connects to those different profiles.
Absolutely, Gary. That's a great question. We know that we're going to put D's in the box a little bit because they're not in control of the class. We probably can address that a little bit to let them know in how the class is put together that they are going to have the opportunity to speak and feedback and give feedback. S's are going to have the opportunity to engage with other people, and we don't use the DISC at this point. We don't speak to that, But Gary, your idea of speaking to those different behavioral styles is brilliant, and something we really can take the opportunity to illustrate and have that in mind in those first 5 slides. Boy, we got D's in the group. How do I frame this? Boy, we got I's in the group. How do I frame this? S's and C's, and it's got to be logical. It's got to be social. It's got to be fun. So what a great thing to have in mind. I would say, probably to answer your question, we do it more in just how we behave and how we act as opposed to specific items. So does that help?
And I would add, or just kind of layer on to what Larry said, it's designed to reach all the different behavior styles so that there's information, enough information for a C. There are interactive points for our I's, can go as fast or as slow as you want for our D's, and time for considering, thinking, again, describing the environment to provide stability for our S's. It's all there. As a facilitator, you will get from your logistics leader, from the folks who are setting up the class for you, a look at how many D's, how many I's, S's, C's you have in a given class. As you know, we'll be seating them, D's together, I's together, etc. That does a couple of things. It gives you an idea if you have a class of D's, C's primarily, or a lot of C's, it's going to be a quiet class. They're going to ask fewer questions. You're going to have to work harder. As Larry said, shaping your facilitation to understand the shape of the folks and the communication styles that are there is really important and really part of your work. You'll note in the class discussion exercise at the end, we put people in groups basically by people who are near them. So the D's are going to work together, and their concerns and expectations can be very different than the concerns and expectations of the S's, the I's, and the C's. So there's an opportunity both here and later to identify how the D, I, S, and C maybe plays into the concerns and expectations that show up. So I hope that's helpful. What do you think, Gary? Are we close to answering your question?
Yeah, I think part of what I was bringing that up for is I could see, reflecting back on those first few minutes in the class. You've got this orientation. Some of it can be really dry. Some of it
Yes.
might not fit with a certain learning style. So, and also just thinking about our own styles and our own preferences. And this is an opportunity perhaps for us as facilitators to flex a little bit and recognize that we need to reach those other behavioral tendencies in the way we present these first 5 or 6 slides, because there's no way to overcome really a first impression. It's an opportunity to grab them, and you use the movie trailer. I mean, this is kind of the movie trailer on your teaching.
That's really true. I love that.
Marcia,
Guys, yes.
this is Kristen. I just wanted to add a couple things. I think it's great that the people end up being grouped by the D's and the I's and the S's and the C's at the end of this. They don't know that yet, but I think it
Right.
provides comfortability because they're going to have some common ground with how they feel about things. So when they put their list together of concerns, they're going to feel like they're already in a safe space because somebody already thought the same thing. The other thing I think that's important is that to know your audience, and hospitality is really important. The temperature of the room, Play-Doh on the table for all those fidgety people, a lot of things like that that can really help to ease the tension. I was looking at that graph. That's the first page in the binder under orientation, the one that has zone 1, 2, 3, and 4. When the bar goes up from teaching to lead exercise, to me, that's like an anxiety bar. And I think
Yes.
clinically, when we can study this model, anytime you see that bar go up, you need to do things that are going to make them feel more at home.
Just to let you know, we're out of time for this activity.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. Really helpful. I love anxiety bar. I think I'm going to start calling it that because that speaks more clearly than our disruption zones, I believe. I love that. Yeah, and again, knowing your folks, really important, and you'll get to know them more. But as Gary has said, those first few slides, they're judging, they're making decisions about whether this fits for them or not, whether this is going to be a waste of time or not. And frankly, that slide 4 is really big because it speaks to one of the key threads, and I'll say this on every call, and that's choice. Making it really clear to every person in your class, they're choosing, they chose to be here, they're making choices every moment to learn to not, to engage to disengage. Understand you're making a choice, just as you guys are on the calls. So that can really speak to all of our 4 disc styles as well. Okay, Larry, turn it back to you.
All right, thank you. I just want to add one thing from what we've just done, and the question from you, Gary, and the comments from Kristen, that is exactly what we are attempting to do here. So thank you for those questions and comments. You guys, in David's words, you guys are spot on. And so I just encourage that. Thank you guys for that. Let's move to a little bit different kind of way of looking at this orientation module. And that's insights and instructions. And Marcia, if you want to pop up that slide that's got the 5 bullets of what instructions and insights is all about. First of all, we're going to take a look at the teaching arc and look at what that teaching arc says about this particular module. Then we're going to look at some ways we can prepare. How do we get ourselves ready for this particular module? Then we're going to look at some tactics. And these are not how to say it, but these are insights for just being aware of your class and being very, very mindful of what your objectives are. So those are the reasons that we call them tactics, is because we do have an objective. We have a learning objective in mind. We're not manipulating, but we are creating an environment. Facilitation factors, just some things to be aware of, and leveraging the linkage. It was noted already that we have a stair-step approach, and we have to have in our mind as facilitators how all the dots get connected. So anytime we look at a module, we want to look at it in the context of what is this module doing for the whole context of the entire class. So let's dive into this. Let's start with a teaching arc. If you bring that up, Marcia. And as Kristen already noted, the first experience there, that exercise, puts some anxiety in some people's mind. It might not cause anxiety for everyone. Some people are very comfortable with turning to a partner they've never met before and sharing their lives. Other people, that's a zone 2 kind of experience. So let this guide of the teaching arc guide you. And it's great, as it was mentioned, that we be knowledgeable, that's going to maybe cause some anxiety. So use this teaching arc to do that. The other part where the zone increases is when we inspire participation and we really challenge people, hey, we're going to present some ideas for behavioral change. That in itself is something that may cause a zone 2 experience for people, and we want it there. We want them to experience a little bit of, yeah, maybe okay. So part of this is the illustration of the different zones is where people will be. Part of it is kind of how we're moving them intentionally. Keep in mind the learning objectives that are there. Each part of this course, each part of this module addresses different learning objectives. Be mindful of those. And then the second from the bottom line there talks about the different things, the different chunks that this is broken into. and then the time, of course, the estimated timing. And as we talk about timing, I just want to thank Gina for her skill here in doing timing. It's a little bit awkward to interrupt sometimes and say what the time is, but thank you, Gina, for keeping us on track. We're not slaves to the time, but it is a reality that we need to be mindful of. Any questions on the teaching arc?
What are the zones aligned to? Is that the Kirkpatrick model that was shared with us?
Great question.
That is
No,
yeah, I'll let Marcia address that.
thanks, Larry. I would love to. Those are disruption zones. And there is some documentation in our first call that just explains that zone 1 is very minimal disruption. Zone 4 is disruption at a level that counseling takes people to, where you're really examining some nitty-gritty, visceral issues in your life. We have no desire to go to zone 4. However, real change can't happen unless people are disrupted. Adults who are successful in their lives, which all of us are, until the pain of staying the same is worse than the pain of change, we won't change. So in the training, in the class, you'll note that in reflective listening, particularly a little bit in DISC and in effective confrontation, we get into zone 3, which is moderate disruption. Disruption at a level that people may push back on your facilitation, push back on the concepts. In listening particularly, they'll look to break the model because, of course, I ask questions. That is designed in the training. The teaching arc lets you know when we're up in zone 3, this is going to be uncomfortable. They're in the box. They could get angry in a way, not deeply. We're not in zone 4. We're not counselors, don't intend to be. So I hope that's helpful. This is the idea that we present, frankly, and I'll just use listening as an example, we present people with the dilemma that their behavior and their values don't match. And when I have to look at that, I have to make a decision or a rationalization. And we spend most of day 2 in listening in order to work through those rationalizations and help folks move to a place where they can accept that they might need to change some behaviors. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marcia. We will talk more about this in St. Louis again with the details of the teaching arc. It's a great tool to help us. Let's move on to some preparation pointers and just some practical things to keep in mind. It was mentioned already. The tech check, make sure everything works. Seems obvious, but boy, batteries and everything can go wrong. Seems like. And the environment, as it was mentioned, the hospitality, all of that is very, very important as preparations for this very first day. The first 2 slides can be a visual clue to you of what you're doing before you pick up that clicker. You are building bonds and establishing trust as you meander with the people that are coming in. That is your first impression, as Gary said. We can't do it over. That first handshake, that eye contact, all the nonverbals, that very first moment when they walk in the classroom wondering what this is all about is a priceless moment, and we need to take advantage of it. Your introductions will set the stage for how other people introduce themselves. You guys have seen that, you've experienced that. Be clear on your introduction. Make it meaningful, make it real, have it authentic, but have it in your head. Have it in your head. Let's go on. Some other preparation pointers on the next slide is just to be aware of what these different slides are when you divide them between the different facilitators. They just have different roles, and we went through that in our 40,000 view. Let's look at some teaching tactics that would help us maybe to make the material a stick. Use the icons. They're helpful. People remember those. Be aware that those slides 8 through 15, those movie trailers that you're setting the stage, boy, I'm glad I'm here. This is going to be a great class, is a setup to the concerns and expectations that adults learners need. And that exercise will work if you yourself are authentic, if you own the material, if you are giving if you're giving information about what to expect and what the experience was like for you, your own stories, and just be aware that every class is different. As Gary said, there's different behavioral styles and different disc styles. All of this is to bring the class to the point where they can identify their concerns and expectations and really set their personal stage. What are they going to experience over the next 3 days? So that's what you're doing with those slides. Let's move on to some, we call them facilitation factors. These are things, just be mindful. You're an example. People catch it, they're caught rather than taught. How you behave, how you act, how you show and tell is more powerful than what you say. You are to, if you can provide models and examples, for example, the introduction exercise, how you model that, how you actually do that will impact their experience and how they do it. And then the facilitation ideas of when to speak, when to be quiet, when to ask a question, when to just let it rest and regulate. Those are facilitation skills. We're going to cover those in St. Louis when we talk about the how, but those are especially pivotal in this first module as you set the stage. So let's look a little bit at how these are all connected together, leveraging the linkage. We want to connect this with other learning that they might have. Let's give them some context. Okay, you've had this other learning. How is this one different? You're drawing a linkage there between their experience and what they're going to have in the next 3 days. Know that we're creating community and celebrating community. Starting with the introduction, at the end, we're going to have a recognition exercise. If you can have in your head as a facilitator this thread of community, it doesn't exist when they walk in the door. It does exist when they walk out the door on the 3rd day. Your role is to build community. Keep that thread in mind. It'll help guide you as you make all the little micro decisions throughout the 3 days. Significant behavior change. We can't overemphasize this. Marcia has said it, and it'll be said again and again and again, that we are out to change behavior, and clearly you guys get this already. It's not a data download, it's how to help people communicate with other people. We got a few more leverage the linkage on the next slide. The icons of the elements of learning, keep those in your head. Those are they exist, of course, throughout the entire course, and they help people connect with what context they're doing. Are they practicing? Are they thinking? Are they reflecting? Are we engaging with other people? This is helpful for people to know what is happening throughout the class, and you as a facilitator need to recognize that these occur all the way through the 3 days. And another way that we use the first day to connect with the rest of the days is the flip chart of concerns and expectations. Use that throughout the class. That builds trust and credibility if we can reflect back to those throughout the days and recognize, oh, remember on the first day someone mentioned this concern, and actually possibly address it at that point on day 2 or 3. It's a way to pull the whole class together, pull the material together, and make it a cohesive experience for the individuals. So those are some ideas on how we link everything together. And if I look at,
We have about
do
30
you have a glance
seconds
at
left.
Gina?
We have about 30
I
seconds.
have 30 seconds left. I'm going to conclude with just a couple of things. Every class is different. Make it real. Make it in the moment. Share stories that are old and share stories that are new. Own the material and be yourself as you engage other people on this journey. So that's what I see as the some of the things to keep in mind for orientation. Marcia, I want to turn it over to you now, and if you want to comment on that or continue on, I'll pass the baton to you.
Just thank you, Larry. That was terrific. I know Larry and I could spend a lot of time just sitting with you and talking about and hearing your questions and seeing what you think. Please work with this module. Don't think you're just done with it after today. Rather than moving right into DISC, think about what Larry has shared. Take a look through this PowerPoint. Set yourself up to be comfortable as you go into this. And one of the things I think that's really important to remember, and we'll talk about this more and more, is there's no reason to in any way defend the material or sell the material. You really are bringing a gift to folks. And as Larry said, just be real. Just be real. But the more you can understand how the design works and where the folks are as you guys are working through the class, the more you'll be able to be there for them, learning together with them, rather than standing up on a pedestal teaching them, because that's really not what this is about. So great job, Larry. Thank you very much. Lots to think about.